Do we have faith that once this amendment is passed, the processes are going to be put in place? How long will it take for me to be able to go and get a Haitian passport at the consulate?
Before we even get there,
sure.
Reginald's talking about voting rights.
Yeah.
Right now, we both have Haitian passports. We still cannot vote if we don't go to Haiti.
Sure.
So dual citizenship is not going to automatically change that for you because
sure.
the Haitians who are here cannot vote right now.
Right. But what I'm asking is, is there a possibility that with this amendment, with the dual citizenship, the consulate starts offering more services for participation in Haitian citizenry in Haiti from here for those who have the two passports or not?
There's no indication that any system has been put in place. It's, for that to happen. That's one of the reasons people would want dual citizenship is to be able to do those kind of things. But it's gonna cost money to have logistically. You're gonna have to increase the size of the consulate to serve all these people. Because now, let's say we have 1 million Haitians living in the United States who still have Haitian passport. The consulate cannot serve those people. Like let's talk about Haitians here who are subject of Haiti. If they arrest me right now, you have nobody who can go to the jail or the prison to represent you. Right now, if you're Haitians. So now, if you double the size of that population, it's gonna be a man. So even, sometimes in Haiti, we do stuff like backwards. We try to implement a law and we don't even know what's gonna happen. What do we need to have in place? So I think it's a conversation that we need to have.
Sure.
But I don't know if we're ready yet, right now,
to
even have it in law. Because once it's a law...
But what do you say to those of our viewers who are saying, every time a candidate comes and asks me for money, I donate. Candidates come every 4 years. I've donated to candidate X, I've donated to candidate Y. I'm now paying a portion of each call to Haiti going to the education fund in Haiti. I want representation. I understand that there's all these constitutional hurdles, all these procedural hurdles, but something has to be done. What is the solution that we are offering so that this amendment can be railroaded through quicker and so that the amendment means something once it is passed? Johnny.
Well, you have to go beyond the amendment, beyond the promulgation of the amendment itself. It's about the rules and regulations that are going to be put in place so that the amendment becomes effective. If you didn't have a dysfunctional country, if you had a functional government or functional courts and so on, then it would be easy to engage in that kind of a conversation. But unfortunately, that kind of conversation is probably going to be pretty hard to do, and perhaps won't even take place. You'll be faced with a fait accompli.
Someone would say, a couple months ago, we didn't think we'd have a prime minister. We have a prime minister now. Some things are working. We now have a government. The government has 37 people in it. So things do move along. So how do we get this?
No, I think, but obviously, if those who are determined to ensure that this is a functional amendment have to put pressure on the government of Haiti, on the powers that be, so that the rules and regulations that should be promulgated will be, to some extent, in favor of a fair application of the law.
So putting pressure, which is the theme of the day. Everybody says the diaspora needs to put more pressure, which means the diaspora has to be organized in that capacity.
Exactly. We just can't wait for the government leaders, to come on themselves, on their own, to sort of say, okay, we're going to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Because
and that's true everywhere. This is not just a Haitian issue, obviously.
Well, there's some governments that are bound by the rules.
Okay.
Unfortunately, governments in Haiti, even though that we now have a prime minister, we keep demonstrating that we don't get bound by the rules.
Sure. Okay.
This is something that I personally want to put out here right now.
Please.
It's not a lack of laws on paper we have in Haiti. The Constitution itself is more than 100 articles. Okay, that gives people all kind of rights on how to become Haitian, on your rights as a citizen, what you need to do. From the government, how to get elected. So the Constitution is like, if you look at it as a whole, it's not perfect, but it has a lot of good description on how the country is supposed to be functioning. The problem is we just do not have the system in place to implement any of these things. Okay, so we can pass all the amendments we want. Say you have dual citizenship. if you're not implementing it, executing that law, it's useless.
Okay. But I'm concerned with the
is it-
viewers who might be listening to you today and thinking, well, why are we here? Is there any hope at all? Is there anything that can be done? I want to get to the part of the conversation about what can we do to make sure that we actually get these processes in place, that we actually are able to buy more than one house in Haiti, that we actually are able to serve in public office in some capacity, as much as possible. Reginald, we'd love to hear more from you generally, but on this issue specifically.
There are a few things we could do.
Yeah.
One is organize politically.
Sure.
I know that there's
The Haitian Diaspora Federation has been lobbying specifically on the dual citizenship issue. I'm not sure if Ilio is convinced, but yes,
but
technically. Yeah.
Right now, there isn't sort of like a united front. If we were to organize as a political action committee, as a political party, whatever it may be, to sort of then figure out what are the 1 or 2 or 3 issues that we would like to see happen, and to push for it in a way that in a campaign, sort of as a campaign.
Isn't it pretty clear that dual citizenship is one of these things that the diaspora all agree that they want? Isn't that a clear priority for the diaspora today?
I'm not convinced, because where was the uproar when the amendment just sort of disappeared?
It was all over Twitter. Everybody was very concerned. This is why we're having this show today. We want to know what happened to the amendment. And the question was asked to the president at York College, and he answered, it's going to be passed as soon as I have a government.
I think people asked, what happened to the amendment?
Sure.
And there was no answer.
Okay.
And then it sort of went away. The way I think it should
Well,
look.
there was the prime minister crisis. There's now the crisis with the arrested congressman. Sure.
But I think the way it should look
Yes.
is we should demand a formal answer. Yes, we did not have a government that was assembled yet. But nevertheless, there was a president who was elected on a specific platform, and he courted us.
He certainly did. We got his text messages. We got his emails. Yeah, he was all over Twitter. Yes, he certainly courted the diaspora. So why can't the diaspora get its due?
That's just something here. The dual citizenship is not really a Martelly thing. This is where I think we jumping too far. Okay, this thing was supposed to be done before Martelly took
Absolutely.
office.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes, both Martelly and
Sure.
Nani got promised that they were gonna see it through, because the next Congress, okay, if you remember, took office before Martelly was sworn in.
Absolutely.
And they first
Yes, this is definitely an issue he inherited.
So
as opposed to
it's not
he
really a
created.
Martelly thing. Now
Absolutely,
Martelly,
yes.
since he promised that,
And
again,
since he's the current president.
so it's like we have to follow what we have to correct whatever mistake there is in it. Or the other thing we can do is have a referendum, have a new constitution. That's something we can talk about too. We don't have to go back and, if it's broken, we cannot implement it. All the promises
We're
that's in
still working on the 2011 Constitution.
Well, but we have to do it
and
right.
we're still, yeah, sure,
'Cause
yes.
every 5 years, we're going to go back to that same process.
Okay.
If the thing is broken, we have to sit down as a nation and say what exactly, where we're going.
Sure.
So Martelly cannot, I don't think it's going to be legal for him to just say, I'm going to publish something out of nothing. We need the process.
But you saw the tape where he said that he had a team that went through the records, went through whatever evidence there was, and reconstituted what was said in that parliamentary session.
If it was that easy, they would have passed it right now, because the prime minister is in. There's nothing stopping them from passing it.
Sure,
Why can't they do it now?
They're starting an army. There's a lot of. This may not be a priority, and the question is, how do we get this thing published? Why do I get the sense that if this thing just finally gets published, the correct version, we will have taken a step ahead?
But this is the problem you're not acknowledging. We do not know what the correct version is right now. Nobody can say this is the correct version, because if they had it, they would have published it before Preva left. That's the issue at hand right now. So what is Martelly going to publish? Are they going to fake a document and publish something? So there were no minutes taken.
You're definitely echoing the sentiment of Dr. Georges Michel, who I spoke to earlier this morning, who said that whatever gets published will not solve the crisis.
Because I want it to be done right, because if not, we're going to keep going back to that same issue.
I think we could get bogged down, in discussing the details of implementation of a presidential promise. I think the bigger issues, frankly, is whether or not any of this is going to lead to a reverse brain drain, whether or not the Haitians who have adopted another citizenship and who are doing relatively well in this country, or perhaps not that well, are going to feel as if that they are going to be welcome and that they are going to be able to contribute something positive to the country with the protection of the motherland. And to me, that's a real issue.
And where do you fall on that?
Well, I mean, I've always been very active, helping Haiti,
Absolutely.
regardless.
But my point is, do you think that we will get there?
I'm not sure, because to some extent it takes another mindset. It takes a mindset that says we welcome you and we want to cooperate with you on an equal footing. Currently, because most Haitians are sort of living in a closed society, the intrusion into that environment of what they see as a foreigner, Haitians, whether or not you have become an American citizen or not, the intrusion of somebody they see as foreign, then becomes an obstacle to cooperating. And that is, to me, one of the biggest issues that we face now in Haiti.
Okay.
But I would add also, besides the brain drain, is simply just courting Haitian Americans to go to Haiti and go on vacation, visit family, whatever it may be. Because I think one of the things that that diaspora and the Haitian government can work on together is rebranding Haiti to Haitians. I have friends who haven't stepped foot in Haiti in over 20 years, who think I'm absolutely crazy to go to Haiti.
Sure.
And
there's also, to be fair, a number of them I follow on Twitter, lots of young Haitian Americans who were born here, who have moved back to Haiti they're generally they're under 30. They were generally born here and they've moved back to Haiti in the last 3 years, I'd say. But which is kind of a positive note.
It is, but I think
and kind of the future. I think they can be brought back and used and actually communicate their experience here and encourage young Haitian Americans to spend more time in Haiti.
But I think that there's a lot of room for improvement in actually getting Haitians to bring money to Haiti. Because I think before the brain drain happens, people feel as though that if they move to Haiti, it's going to be a functioning government. Haiti's complicated. And I think with money, ideally, I know that the Haitian government does not always work the way it's supposed to be, but if there's more money in the country, there's more revenue, there's more money to do things, there's more money to fix roads, the economy's improved, and it opens up a whole lot of different things. So that's one way I hope this thing works out.
Any final word?
I think all two of us
With
here
2 minutes left.
are pretty much hopeful for something good to happen for Haiti.
Sure.
If dual citizenship is going to be the path forward, that's going to bring more revenue, more people with technicalities to help Haiti. We're all for it, but it has to be done in the right way. We cannot fast forward our way to progress. It's a process, and we have to follow the process.
Johnny, final word?
Well, hopefully we'll get to a point where there's going to be a little bit more stability, and that we get to a point where the civil service is becoming a little bit more responsive to the needs of the citizenry, and that would include the Haitian diaspora.
I think if this amendment passes, but we don't take advantage to help shape the agenda.
Johnny, Ilio, and Reginald, thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you. I'd also like to send a special thank you to Colors Restaurant located at 417 Lafayette Street in New York City for hosting us. They have been very gracious. We encourage all of you watching to continue this discussion in your communities. In the meantime, we'd love to hear your comments on this and other topics that affect the Haitian diaspora. So feel free to contact us at info@spotlightonhaiti.com. You can also follow me for my updates on Haiti on Twitter @Kiskiasity. Until next time, I'm your host, Alice Backer. Take care.